Okay. Okay, we're okay.
I'll respond to the questioner. I'm
Well,
looking at the questioner. I mean.
Steve, can you tell us what happened today in court?
Yeah, we withdrew our motion. The district attorney no longer is seeking to set aside his plea bargain and reinstate the murder charges. Instead, we asked the judge to please simply put it over for sentencing on the accessory to murder charge that he has pled no contest to.
Can you tell us what led to that decision? It's been a little bit vague up until this point as to what exactly is going into making these big decisions. So ultimately, it sounds like your office does not feel like Adela is a killer.
That's what I would say in answer to that question is that after reviewing all of the evidence, and what we were really holding on to this point was to find out what came out at the jury trial for the accomplices Bayat and Lee, whether that provided us with additional evidence that would help us determine that Mr. Adela is responsible for the murder of Keith Green. In some very lengthy, many hour meetings that have occurred in this office over the last week, I arrived at the conclusion that the evidence does not support proving beyond a reasonable doubt that Olivia Adela is responsible for the murder of Keith Green. The evidence was insufficient, and then, of course, ethically, a prosecutor cannot go forward if I don't believe it. The evidence is sufficient, and that's why we did not seek to go forward with withdrawal of the plea.
What's likely to happen next month at sentencing? Will Mr. Adela go free, or what's likely to happen?
In all likelihood, he will go free because the information I have is that in the course of his detention in our county jail prior to trial, that it amounts up to the maximum sentence that can be imposed for the accessory to murder. So I anticipate on that day, absent something we don't know about, the court will sentence him, and he will then have completed his time and be out on probation or parole, whatever the judge decides. But in terms of incarceration, that will complete it, I expect.
Is this good news for Kaveh Bayat and his chances of perhaps not facing a second trial for homicide?
I would say it's neutral in that respect. There, of course, there have been, among the many things I've been considering, is if I had decided we would proceed on trying to convict Mr. Adela of murder, what impact would that be? Because, of course, we would try, if we were doing them both, we would do them together. And so that was definitely a consideration. But in the long run, I think the evidence against each of them stands alone.
There have been a couple of delays about the status of Mr. Bayat. Can you tell us the reason for those delays, or what's going into that process?
We're doing some extensive look in there. This is an important decision that I will be making. It's important to Mr. Green's family. It's important to this office and the community. And I don't take the decision lightly. So we've been interviewing jurors. We've been looking through. I've been getting written briefings on everything that came in during the course of the Bayat Lee trial because I wasn't down there in court. And so I want to do it the right way. And I'm not concerned about Mr. Bayat if he has to stay in custody while I make this decision. My goal is to make the proper and ethical decision as to that. I'm not going to prosecute him just because I want to prosecute him. I'm going to prosecute him because I think the evidence supports that he is guilty of murder, and we can prove it.
Are you able to tell us what the jurors have said to you following the sentencing as far as why they found Tiffany not guilty for murder and conspiracy?
Not at this time. I won't go into that. After we make our decision on Bayat and I announce that I'm maybe willing to become more open about what they had to say. At this point, no, because what they had to say is very significant in the decision that I'm weighing.
Okay. And I was just exchanging a few messages with Green's friends today after the decision came down about Adela, and they're actually a little bit fearful for their safety, knowing that Mr. Adela will be released from jail next month. What would you say to Green's friends and family who at this point don't really feel safe with the possibility of Kaveh being released and Adela being released next month?
As to your question regarding Mr. Adela, I don't think there is a concern there. I think Mr. Adela, other than wanting to talk to you reporters every chance he gets, I don't think that is on his plate. We listen to the phone calls that all of them make. Every phone call they make out of the jail, we listen to them. And that has not been on the plate in any fashion. So my comment would be, without a promise, because one never does that, but my comment would be I don't see this as the type of case, or what I know about Mr. Adela, that concern should exist.
Can you tell us anything about who is Mr. Adela? How did he get involved in the whole Cave, Tiffany, Keith Green love triangle, as some people describe it? How did he get roped into this whole thing?
I'm not sure roped in is the right word. Money hungry is certainly a word. Greed continues to be one of the characteristics of people in this world that will keep prosecutors and police busy forever. And I think that plus, people who, all of them hanging out at the gym and meeting there and getting this friendship, and one can have no comment on people who go to gyms, but it is a comment that these three people in going to the gym certainly developed a common interest. And the one thing they had that almost everybody in the world who goes to gyms doesn't have is they were, in our view, they were willing to commit a crime. And that's why we charged them for that. But that was sort of greed and the desire for the body beautiful.
And I've just been trying to find out. I know police found a large amount of cash in Adela's apartment. Was he in fact paid at any point? And if so, who paid him?
Well, as I think my prosecutor was argued at the trial, that there was a payment that came on behalf of Lee and Bayot. Obviously, the jury did not find that to be the case. By 12, a unanimous jury didn't find that to be the case. Your speculation and many other people's speculation is about as good as we'll have from this point forward. We'll never be able to answer that question definitively. There are explanations for where else it may have come from. Our position was that it came as payment for the conduct he engaged in. Whether that conduct was engaged in the murder or what we know for sure that he did, and that was the dumping of Keith Green's body up in a county to our north.
I talked to Cave's defense attorney, John May, a couple weeks ago, and he said there was actually a lie detector test administered to Mr. Adela, and that Mr. Adela failed twice on the question of, did you murder Keith Green? Did that actually happen, that lie detector test?
I don't even discuss lie detector tests because my personal belief is that they're unreliable, mean nothing. There are three people that I prosecuted for murder, different cases, who are serving life sentences in prison, all of whom passed lie detector tests. And so my faith, and I think it's a great investigative tool, but what they do on TV that makes it foolproof, that's television, not life.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Gotcha, guys?
Yeah.
I think we're good. Yeah.
No questions?